All right, welcome aboard. I am pleased to be on here with Charlie Mattingly today, and we're just going to be discussing a topic that's come about a lot recently with our clients with estate planning. And so we're going to be discussing a testamentary trust, and Charlie's going to walk us through an example of a personal situation, and then I'm going to go over a little more of the details about what a testamentary trust is, maybe the difference between that and a living trust. And so, Charlie, you want to start us off here?
Yeah, absolutely. This is this is a super important topic, and the most important thing to remember is make sure your beneficiaries are set on all of your accounts. Especially retirement accounts, even what we call a brokerage account or a non IRA, non 401k. A lot of people have brokerage accounts. Maybe they're using it as their emergency fund, but you can set a beneficiary on that account as well because a lot of people want to avoid probate if they can, right? And a beneficiary does that. But Nolan, you and I have gone down a path where what do we set now as our secondary beneficiaries? Because most of the time, you set your spouse as primary, the spouses are each other's primary. But now the secondary gets a little difficult because for me and my family, I have two girls that are minors and one daughter, my stepdaughter, is an adult. So my wife Lisa and I have gone out and we went to an attorney and we did the wills and the durable power of attorneys and the living wills and things that we're supposed to do. But now one of the real nuance areas here is, and the attorneys will address this with you as a family. They'll say, "What if?" And that's their job to kind of cover all these what if scenarios, right, in the estate planning world. What if you and your wife pass away on the date night? Or as one of our clients said, get hit by the proverbial bus, right? So what do? The will, one of the most important things for the will for parents with children, especially minor children, is who's going to take care of our kiddos, who's going to be the guardian is kind of the word there. And then who's going to be the custodian, who's going to take care of the money that the children may inherit. That's the custodian. So that's the will is one of the most important things that will can do is designate those things. But now the situation gets a little more unique. Like what happens to our minor children if my wife and I pass away? And let's say I have a life insurance, a $2 million life insurance policy alone, so now our kids are going to inherit a lot of money. Now, here's where it gets tricky. If I put those children, all three of those girls, as secondary beneficiary, then my adult child will inherit that money right out. She's an adult. She can open an inherited account and boom, she has $500,000, $1 million, whatever it might be, depending on circumstances. So do we want an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old child, young adult, to have that much money? And most parents will say, well, I'd rather dole it out to them maybe over time, right, Nolan? So what we can do is in the will, and this is a lot of attorneys do this to the will, or we can use a trust. If I have a living trust, then I just write all this out. When do I want my kids to receive monies, whether they're adults, minors, whatever, and then that trust becomes the secondary beneficiary. Now, in the case of myself, my family, we have what's called a testamentary trust. And so that is written in the will. Here's my will right here. The testamentary trust, the will says, if you have simultaneously death, you and your wife pass away, then a trust will be created. My sister's the trustee. But what about the testamentary trust, Nolan? I mean, you've looked into that a little bit. What are the particulars of that?
Just to start off by definition, a testamentary trust is established in accordance with the instructions contained in your will, Charlie, and in that testament. So it's going to go into effect. It's established when a person passes away. So this is different from a living trust where that's created and handled while the person is still alive. So with the living trust, it doesn't go through probate. And then as with the testamentary trust, it's going to be established as it goes through probate after a person has passed away. A testamentary trust going through probate is definitely something to consider when looking at the options for estate planning.
Basically, what this boils down to, and this is the point that we're getting at, is for me, my wife Lisa is my primary beneficiary. Now, if I put my three girls as secondary beneficiaries, my adult stepdaughter is going to get the money outright. And what I put in that will does not apply to her, because the important thing to remember here is that beneficiaries pass outside the will, outside of probate. So that's kind of a good thing because it makes it easy, simple, and straightforward. But if you don't want your child, your adult child, early 20s, depending on the age of majority in your state, if you don't want them to have direct access to all that money, then you have to do something different. And that is where, if you have a testamentary trust like mine, you're going to put special language as a secondary beneficiary. And let me show you what that looks like. So, Nolan, like the language that we put as secondary beneficiary for our children, minor children, and even young adult children, if you have special directives in your will, the language has to be very specific. It basically has to point to the location in your will of those directions where it directs the creation of that trust. Okay, now that's confusing. But when Schwab or Fidelity or whoever, is looking at the death certificate and they got their team of attorneys trying to determine what your intentions were with your inheritance, they need to be directed to exactly where that lives. And that's what some attorneys have said. That's what some people that we trust have said as far as the language to put as a secondary beneficiary. So this is what it looks like. One example is to say this fictitious person's child's name is Luke Smith. So 20% of to the trustee of the Luke Smith Testamentary Trust created under Article 6, Section 4 of my last will and testament, dated January 1, 2023. So that's just an example. Again, those names and things are made up, but that's what it would look like. So anyway, Nolan, that is the language. Now, how do you physically do that? We called Schwab and was like, hey, how do I put this language in there as my secondary trust? Because there's a space about that big, right? Online. So there is a place for Schwab. I can't speak to Fidelity or others right now, but there's a place where you can put, as a secondary beneficiary, you put, is it a person? Or they'll ask, is it a trust, or other? And that's where I put that in there.
Mhm.
And I just cut and paste that language right in there, and you can put that as a secondary beneficiary. So in the big scheme of things here, Nolan, when people get their wills done, their trusts done, they need to ask this question of their attorney, like, how do I designate this on my retirement accounts, my brokerage account? How do I designate what I want to happen? Because again, the most confusing scenario is when, like mine, when you have some adult children, some minor children. If those adult young children are on there as beneficiary, whatever you have in your will is not applicable anymore, because that beneficiary with them as a beneficiary, the money will go directly to them. So hopefully we made that as clear as possible, Nolan. It's a confusing one, and it really bleeds over into the world of estate planning, where attorneys, they're the experts here, and you need to seek the advice of the attorney that's working with you on your will and your trust, if that's the case. And what do I put as beneficiaries on my accounts? That's a big one, because a lot of times that never gets completed in the process there when you're working with an attorney.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think on our end, we're just trying to make you aware of these estate planning topics, these
Mhm.
issues, and as Charlie said, to be able to go speak with your attorney about these particulars.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nolan. Appreciate your time today, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Charlie. Leading Edge Financial Planning, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Leading Edge Financial Planning and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For additional information, please visit our website at www.leadingedgeplanning.com. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, and it should not be relied on as such. It should not be considered a solicitation to buy or an offer to sell a security. It does not take into account any investor's particular investment objectives, strategies, tax status, or investment horizon. You should consult your attorney or tax advisor. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change based on market and other conditions. These documents may contain certain statements that may be deemed forward-looking statements. Please note that any such statements are not guarantees of any future performance, and actual results or developments may differ materially from those projected. Any projections, market outlooks, or estimates are based upon certain assumptions and should not be construed as indicative of actual events that will occur. All information has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but its accuracy is not guaranteed. There is no representation or warranty as to the current accuracy, reliability, or completeness of, nor liability for, decisions based on such information, and it should not be relied on as such.